To bear another's burden is to enter sacred ground. It is not about rescuing, fixing, or absorbing. It is about being present in love without losing yourself in the process. It is about holding another person's pain in your hands while still having hands of your own. Agape love, the love that gives without demanding, that serves without seeking reward, and that remains rooted in truth, is the only kind of love strong enough to carry someone else's burden without breaking both people in the process. Scripture calls us clearly, carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. This is not a call to martyrdom or codependency. It is not a call to erase oneself for the sake of someone else's comfort. The law of Christ is love, but not a hollow or weak love. It is a love that pours itself out from a place of strength. Jesus bore the weight of the world's sin, but even he withdrew often to pray, to rest, to restore. He wept, yes, but he did not drown in others' despair. He healed, but he also said no. He gave, but he also confronted. Agape is not the abandonment of self. It is the offering of the self, fully intact, into the suffering of others without becoming lost inside it. Saint Josephine Bakhita, a Sudanese woman enslaved as a child, understood this kind of love. She endured brutality that should have shattered her. Yet when she found faith, she transformed her wounds into a quiet life of service. She did not seek power or retribution. Her burden became a bridge. Through prayer, forgiveness, and gentle labor, she bore the sorrow of others with dignity, even as she carried her own. She once said that if she were to meet her captors, she would kiss their hands for leading her, through her suffering, to Christ. This was not enmeshment. It was a transcendent, liberated love that refused to be poisoned by hate. Another often forgotten figure is Blessed Franz Jägerstätter, an Austrian farmer who refused to swear allegiance to Hitler. In standing alone, he bore the scorn of his community, the confusion of his parish, and the terror of imprisonment and death. His wife, Franziska, bore that burden with him, not by controlling, not by silencing her fear, but by standing firm in silent strength beside the truth he carried. She did not demand that he yield to ease their life. She did not break beneath the weight of public rejection. Together they held the tension of love and conscience without dissolving into despair. She did not make his burden hers. She bore it alongside him with grace. To bear burdens in this way is not something reserved for saints in stained glass windows. It happens in kitchens and classrooms, in prison cells and hospital rooms, in whispered prayers and sleepless nights. It is the mother who sits with her son through his panic attack, knowing she cannot take the fear away, but can still be an anchor. It is the friend who drives an hour every week to visit someone in rehab, not to lecture or cure, but to remind them they are still worthy of love. It is the worker who shows up every day to care for the elderly with gentleness, though no one praises her and her back aches with fatigue. These are acts of agape. These are burdens lifted, if not erased. There is a delicate line between bearing and becoming. When someone is hurting, it is easy to fall into their sorrow, to drown with them in the effort to love them well. But true agape maintains identity. It says, I will walk through this valley with you, but I will not lay down and make a bed in your grief. It sets boundaries not to shut love out, but to keep love pure. A boundary is not the absence of compassion. It is the structure that makes compassion sustainable. Without it, love becomes enmeshment, and helping becomes harm. The gospel models this again and again. Jesus allowed the rich young man to walk away. He allowed Judas to betray him. He healed some, but not all. He served, but he also corrected. His love was not weak or indiscriminate. It was discerning, firm, and fearless. Bearing burdens with agape means learning to love like that, with your eyes open, with your soul intact, and with a willingness to release what cannot be carried forever. There is also Saint Seraphina, paralyzed and neglected by those around her, who used her own suffering to unite with the loneliness of others. Though abandoned, she offered her prayers for the poor, the sick, and the voiceless. Her small, hidden acts of devotion bore burdens far beyond what anyone saw. She did not need a platform. Her burden was offered quietly, and her agape was not in grand gestures, but in daily surrender. To bear burdens with agape is not just about responding to others' pain. It is also about seeing who the most burdened are, the overlooked, the chronically ill, the mentally unstable, the elderly who receive no visitors, The prisoner no one writes, the single mother with no support, the teen who self-harms in silence. These are the ones Christ pointed to when he said, "Whatever you do for the least of these, you do for me." Not just when it is convenient, not just when it is acknowledged, but consistently, quietly, without needing applause. This kind of love must be cultivated. It does not arise from sentiment or obligation. It grows from a life rooted in prayer, in humility, in the constant return to the cross. Agape does not say, "How can I be needed?" It says, "How can I serve wisely?" It does not say, "How much can I carry?" It says, "What can I carry that does not destroy me? And where must I trust God to carry the rest?" To live this out means practicing detachment from outcome. You may love someone who never gets well, never says thank you, never changes. That does not mean your love failed. You may carry burdens that are invisible to everyone else. That does not mean your sacrifice is wasted. You may be called to step away from someone you love deeply because the burden has become unhealthy. That is not selfish. It is honest. It is agape in its most mature form. The Catechism of the Catholic Church teaches that charity, the highest form of love, is ordered toward the true good of the other, not comfort, not compliance, not appeasement, but truth. To love someone with agape is to desire their healing, even when it means telling them hard things. It is to stand with them in the fire, but not feed the flames. Bearing others' burdens in this way is exhausting, yes, but it is also what gives life its deepest meaning. When we carry well, we become Christ to others. We hold their cross for a while, not forever, not alone, but faithfully. And when we do this, the burden is shared not just between two humans, but lifted up into the arms of God Himself. That is agape. That is the divine strength in human form. That is the love that saves not just others, but ourselves.